My name is Nick Justice. I teach at Mastbaum High School, which is part of the Philadelphia School District. I teach filmmaking or film and video, which is one of the CT shops here. So I mentioned Mastbaum High School in Philadelphia. It's specifically in the Kensington neighborhood, which is one of the tough parts of town where there's gun violence, and the opioid epidemic is this is the heart of it. Mastbaum is a regular high school, but we have 11 CTE shops in it, so we've got math and science and English and all that happening, but all the students are in one of the 11 CTE shops. Our school is about 700 students. Then in the 9th grade year, students will choose a shop and be in that shop for 3 years. So first up, I'll talk about continuity, and this one we will be talking about exposure of images with manual aperture. So this is still foundational. This is happening in level 1 and operating the camera. The objective we're going to give the students is, when they're given a camera, they'll be able to capture 3 distinct video clips, and each clip will be of the same sort of subject, but one will be too bright, one's too dark, one is just right. So they're practicing properly exposing the camera. So this they've been working with the camera, they're familiar with it at this point. They've figured out how the buttons work, how to take a camera, how to take the battery out, how to replace the media card. So they've got kind of a basic functioning knowledge of the camera, but everything's been in automatic. So the camera's been making all the decisions towards proper exposure and focus and all that stuff. So this will be the first time we're switching it into manual mode out of auto mode. So quickly, where we start getting into all the technical stuffs. So aperture here, which is where this white arrow is a part of the lens that opens and closes. It has a bunch of blades that are measured in f-stops. So f-stop is the measurement of the aperture. The aperture is the device that either allows light in or stops light from entering. The students will end up with a worksheet like this. But first, we've got to talk a little bit about what the over and under exposure is. So here's a learning plan, and here's a little bit of a sample, right? This is the same flower taken at different exposure levels. So they're going to work in groups, but they are each going to upload images. So the working groups could take photos of each other and kind of rotate with the camera, and then go to the computers and download their media. So exposure, I'm going to use the Batman as a character, and most specifically the Batman as the film, which is down here at the bottom, very classically underexposed or too dark. But because Batman was made for millions of dollars, I don't think it was an accident that it was too dark. They had enough lights, they had enough equipment. This was done on purpose. Why? So there's a creative reason, and why did they use that? So get the students to think about that. And so technically how that happens, we're going to focus on aperture up here, but this exposure triangle, these are all connected into making the exposure happen. Aperture also controls the depth of field, which we won't talk about in this exercise. This comes later. But these other settings, ISO, sensitivity of the camera, shutter speed is how long you take a picture, basically. So they're not going to be adjusting those. We're just going to be adjusting aperture. So reflection on this. Students enjoyed this and worked a little bit faster. It's not surprising that students liked using the camera. That seems obvious, right? This is a cool, fun tool. This is one of the students. And then they also enjoyed reviewing the images together as a class. And quickly we kind of saw some people that just did the exercise and took photos of whatever thing real quick. But some got a little bit more creative and got to perform a little bit more skills in composition and style and all that stuff. reflection for this video editing montage. So this one we dig a little bit more on the reflection aspect of the lesson plan. The big idea here is in post-production. This is early in their venturing into post-production. This is one of the first times that they actually open up the project. And they're given something to edit. So the objective here will be they're going to import files from the computer into the software we use, which is called Adobe Premiere Pro, in order to create a sequence of video and audio files that last 60 seconds. And then they will export a movie and submit it in the Google Classroom. So this has a lot of steps that they got to do, but it's a pretty complicated program, as you can see here. So they got to import, they got to save, and the goal here really was to get them to watch some footage. I gave them footage, like 50 different clips, 5 different songs, and then they could put them together in any way they want. So I wanted to get them like exploring in what they did and then export it. And then the big grading aspect was, is it 60 seconds or is it too short or too long? And then they're learning by doing this montage theory, which is also called the Kuleshov effect. So this idea, right, this is some old stuff. This is this down the side here. This is the same images of man, and then on the other side, the same image of man, same exact film. So we see man, bowl of soup, hungry man. Man, child in a coffin, sad man. Man, lady on a couch, perverted man. So that is the idea, the concept, and this is what the kids are experimenting with. One thing that was happening was the kids working at different paces. You know, some of them came in with a little knowledge, but this was every first time working in this program here. And the software is intimidating. And I wanted to make it possible for them to experiment more and just kind of fumble their way around the program by giving them some tools that hopefully is interesting to them. So this was the first time we were editing anything in this class. Some of them had some previous experience, but not too much. So I wasn't judging them on if the video was good or interesting or had any meanings or if the clips were just totally random. But what they had to do was export a file, right? Because there's 50 files, and then they had to make one new file in an MP4 file that's 60 seconds long. And needed to have at least 15 different video shots in there and a music track. So next time, some of the stuff that was a challenge in this one was kind of bad habits around data management, which by that I mean, right, everybody's used to their Chromebook and everything just gets saved into Google Drive in their Chromebook. So these are the computers we have here, and those are not Chromebooks. And these are big video files, and you're just like, where are they? Where did I save one? I made one. What did I name it? Where did it go? I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. So we had a lot of that. And that's kind of to be expected. And that's just like a very boring lesson. I would rather just like have them fumble through that than me like give a lecture on how to save files and naming conventions. I want that to like kind of come up more naturally. It's important, but it is a dull lesson that I kind of just don't want to teach. Some students really enjoyed the freedom to experiment with the footage, and they started going, hey, how do I make this slow motion? Can I play this backwards? Can I change the colors? Can I make it black and white? And so that was really encouraging because they were having fun and learning and exploring. One thing that going forward, I might try and give them smaller milestones, because some of those that were really getting interested and were trying to make something they cared about would have worked on this for 2 weeks, which I think is typical in the industry, you know, because our classes is, you know, an hour. They get about an hour by the time they sit down. So some of them worked hard on it and wanted to work more, and I had to like pull the plug on them And some just like didn't care and just threw down 15 random clips in a song and submitted that because it didn't matter to them, which is challenging, and I don't know how to get it to matter to them. But here is an example of one that it did matter to a little bit. This might not show up in the recording sound-wise, but you can see we have some clips of Philadelphia. She didn't meet her 60-second mark, but had a good time showing the footage and just experimenting. And she was really like, would have spent weeks on this. And then, so again, some of them got ambitious, talking about transitions and graphics and going above and beyond. But they were starting to quickly evaluate where this is. This happens again pretty early in the level 1 class. One thing I want to add next time I do this next year is some sort of an ticket. Instead of just submitting a movie, submit something that kind of says, what were you going for? What was the vibe you were hoping to create? And somebody who watches this, why should I watch this? Thank you for watching this.